Chuck Norris has reportedly been hospitalized on Kauai following a medical emergency. That's according to TMZ, which reports the 86-year-old actor is in good spirit. Norris owns property on Kauai's North Shore and is a frequent visitor there with his family.
Chuck Norris's death at 86 has unveiled surprising details about the Hollywood legend's private life. Among his personal belongings, family members discovered evidence of a secret that Norris carried for decades, a hidden daughter named Dina, after 26 years of not knowing she existed. The fame, the fortune, the quiet life in Hawaii. But what if I told you that behind those mansion doors was something no one saw coming? And honestly, when you hear what his own family uncovered, you might look at everything differently. Stay with me, because this story only gets more unbelievable the deeper we go. Chuck Norris's Hawaii property, Paradise Island Ranch. A quiet conversation about Chuck Norris and a hidden piece of paradise would honestly feel almost unreal, because Paradise Island Ranch sits far away from the noise most people imagine around a Hollywood life, right on the north shore of Kauai in a place called Kiliwa. And just hearing that already raises a simple question. What would make someone with such a long and busy career choose a place like that to slow down? The answer starts to make sense when looking at how the property came into the picture, since the estate previously belonged to Donovan and Clarissa Howard, who had purchased the land years earlier for about $6.5 million, and later Chuck Norris and Dina Norris stepped in together to close the deal, turning that quiet stretch of land into something much more personal, almost like building a second life away from everything familiar. And honestly, who would not want that kind of escape? The location alone tells a story, sitting just about 10 minutes away from the nearest beach, close enough to hear the ocean if the wind carries sound in the right direction, yet far enough to keep everything peaceful and undisturbed. And that balance makes one wonder, is true luxury really about size and price? Or is true luxury about space, silence, and freedom to breathe? Looking deeper into the property itself, the ranch stretches across about 4,500 square feet, holding 3 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, which already sounds comfortable. But the real value does not even sit inside the walls, because the surrounding views carry the kind of natural beauty that pictures rarely capture fully, with green landscapes, open skies, and that calm island feeling that almost slows time down. And thinking about that, another question comes to mind. How often does a place actually change the way a person feels just by being there? The layout of the land adds even more meaning, since the space allows for movement, activities, and complete privacy, something many public figures quietly look for but rarely talk about openly. And in this case, that space was not just for show, because Chuck Norris actually used parts of the ranch for personal training, which says a lot about how the environment supported not just rest, but also discipline and routine. And that combination feels rare, does it not? A peaceful place that still pushes someone to stay active and focused sounds almost like the perfect balance between rest and growth. Now, when it comes to how the ranch fit into family life, everything becomes even more interesting, because the property was not treated like just another investment sitting quietly on paper. Instead, the ranch became a real retreat, a place where the Norris family could step away from attention and simply exist without pressure. And that raises another simple thought. How valuable is a place where no expectations follow? The 3-bedroom setup gave enough space for comfort, while the overall atmosphere created a sense of calm that allowed real moments to happen, whether through simple conversations, quiet mornings, or shared time without interruptions. And in a world that constantly demands attention, that kind of space feels almost priceless, does it not? The ranch slowly turned into something deeper than property, almost like a reset button that could be used whenever life outside became too loud. One moment that really stands out involves a video shared on March 10th during the 86th birthday of Chuck Norris, where training took place right there on the ranch grounds. And that detail alone says something powerful, because even in a place designed for rest, discipline still found a way to exist. And that naturally leads to another question. Does a person ever truly step away from habits that shape identity? The footage showed movement, focus, and strength, almost like a reminder that consistency does not disappear just because surroundings change. And even more interesting, this moment came just days before a hospitalization, which adds a layer of reflection because it shows how active life remained even during quiet retreat moments. And that contrast makes everything feel more real, more human. The deeper meaning of Paradise Island Ranch starts to unfold when looking at everything together. Because beyond the numbers, the rooms, and the location, the property became a space where life slowed down enough for important things to take center stage. And that leads to one final thought that feels hard to ignore. What really matters when everything else is stripped away? A place like that does not just hold furniture or walls. A place like that holds time, memories, effort, and connection. And in the case of Chuck Norris and family, the ranch became a private world where professional life could pause, where family life could breathe, and where moments could exist without pressure or noise. And honestly, when you take a moment to sit with all of that, the chaos, the noise, the constant pressure to keep up, you start to wonder if anything out there could possibly be more valuable than having a space where life simply feels real again. Not perfect, not curated, just real. A place where the masks come off and the truth quietly finds its way to the surface. But sometimes that kind of truth doesn't arrive gently. It hits all at once, reshaping everything you thought you understood. And that's exactly what happened next. Because just when everything seemed calm on the outside, a secret emerged that no one saw coming. Stay with me till the very end, because this next revelation changes everything. The secret that shocked everyone, his hidden daughter. Back in 1991, something happened in the life of Chuck Norris that almost sounds like something pulled straight out of a movie script. But this time, nothing was staged and nothing was planned. A quiet day at home suddenly turned into a moment that would completely reshape everything. A letter arrived just like any other piece of mail, but this one carried a truth that had been hidden for decades. Inside that letter was a message from a woman named Dina, and the message was simple but powerful. Dina said that Dina was actually a daughter. Now imagine that for a second. How would anyone react to something like that? How would anyone process the idea that a whole human being, a whole life, existed for 26 years without any knowledge at all? The letter explained that Dina had been born back in 1964, during a time when Norris was married to Diane Holacek. There had been an affair, something that stayed buried in the past, and from that moment came a child who grew up completely outside of Norris's world. For 26 years, there was no clue, no hint, no suspicion, just a normal life moving forward without any sign that something so big was missing. Norris later explained in an interview with Entertainment Tonight that the moment felt completely ordinary at first, just going through mail at home, opening letters one by one, nothing unusual. But then that one envelope appeared, that one letter that changed everything. Inside, Dina shared a story that honestly makes anyone pause and think. Dina explained that at the age of 16, the truth came out in a way that was not even meant to happen. Dina overheard a conversation between Dina's mother and someone else, and just like that, everything clicked into place. Can anyone imagine finding out something like that by accident? No preparation, no warning, just a sudden realization that a father was someone famous, someone seen on screens, someone living a completely different life. But instead of rushing to make contact, Dina's mother advised staying away. The reason was simple and complicated at the same time. Norris was married, and stepping into that life could cause damage, confusion, maybe even pain for many people. So Dina stayed away, not for a year or two, but for 10 whole years. 10 years of knowing the truth and choosing silence. That kind of patience alone says so much, does it not? Then, something changed. Dina read in the newspapers that Norris was no longer married. That barrier, that reason to stay silent, was no longer there. And with the support of a husband named Damien, Dina decided to finally reach out. That decision led directly to that letter in 1991. Now, think about that moment again. A single decision, a single letter, and suddenly two completely separate lives are about to collide. Norris did not rush into anything immediately. Instead, Norris chose to involve family, starting with a mother. The letter was shown, and a meeting was arranged, but not directly. Norris's mother met Dina first. Maybe that step felt necessary. Maybe that step made everything feel a little safer, a little more real. After that meeting, a phone call came in, and the message was clear. Norris needed to come over right away. What happened next felt almost unreal. In the memoir, Against All Odds, My Story, Norris described walking into the living room and seeing Dina standing there. That moment carried a kind of shock that is hard to fully explain. A stranger, yet not a stranger at all. A face never seen before, yet somehow familiar. Norris described feeling breath taken away instantly. And then came something even more powerful. Recognition, not through science, not through tests, not through proof on paper, but through instinct, through something deeper. Norris explained that there was no need for DNA tests or blood tests. There was simply no doubt. Dina was a daughter. Just like that, after 26 years of not knowing, certainty arrived in a single moment. How often does life even allow something like that to happen? The first meeting did not stay quiet or distant. Emotion came in fast and strong. A hug happened, and both sides started crying. That kind of reaction does not come from logic or thinking. That kind of reaction comes from something much deeper. Norris later explained that the feeling was as if Dina had always been part of life, as if those missing years somehow collapsed into that one moment. Is that even possible? Can a connection form that quickly after so many lost years? In this case, everything seemed to say yes. From that point, the relationship did not take long to grow. In fact, everything moved forward in a way that almost felt guided. Soon after, Norris found out that Dina and family had moved to Dallas. And this is where things get even more interesting. Around that same time, Norris began filming Walker, Texas Ranger in Dallas, starting in 1993. What are the chances of something like that happening? Two lives finally connecting, and then suddenly living in the same place at the same time. Norris saw that as more than coincidence. There was a sense that timing played a bigger role, something that could not be easily explained. As time passed, the bond between father and daughter became stronger and more natural. Norris spoke about feeling blessed to have Dina in life, and that feeling carried into everyday moments, not just big emotional scenes. Life slowly adjusted to include someone who had always been missing without anyone realizing. And what about Dina? Life also continued to grow on that side. Dina remained married to Damien, and together, a full family was built with 3 children. Years later, that family connection became something visible and shared publicly. In 2015, Norris posted a photo on Facebook during a vacation in Kauai. The photo showed Dina, Damien, and children all together. A simple family moment, but behind that image sat a story that started with a letter, a secret, and a decision to finally reach out. Looking at everything from start to finish, one question keeps coming up again and again. What would have happened if that letter was never sent? Would 2 lives have stayed separate forever? Would a father have never known a daughter existed? And what about the courage it took to write that letter in the first place? 10 years of waiting, 1 moment of action, and everything changed. Life has a strange way of moving quietly, almost unnoticed, as if it's carefully holding back its biggest truths until the exact moment you're ready to see them. For a long time, everything can seem ordinary, predictable even, but beneath the surface, something much bigger is slowly taking shape. And then, without warning, that moment arrives, the kind that changes everything you thought you understood, revealing layers you never saw coming. Suddenly, questions turn into revelations, and stories you assumed were simple become far more complex and meaningful. It's in moments like these that legacies are truly uncovered, not just in words, but in what's left behind. So stay with me, because what comes next isn't just about a life lived. It's about the fortune, the properties, and the hidden details that tell a much deeper story. You won't want to miss a single part of this. The fortune and properties he left behind. When people talk about the life and money built by Chuck Norris, one thing always stands out, and that is how a man known first for discipline and strength quietly built a fortune that reached about $70 million by the time everything was counted. Now think about that for a second. How does someone move from martial arts training to building that level of wealth without losing focus along the way? The explanation comes from years of steady work in entertainment, smart business moves, and a mindset that never drifted too far from martial arts roots. Even with all the acting success, Norris always made it clear in interviews that martial arts came first. Not fame, not money, not Hollywood. That alone says a lot, does it not? Because how many people step into the spotlight and still hold tightly to the original identity that started everything? A big part of that fortune came from acting, especially from the long-running television series Walker, Texas Ranger, which turned into something much bigger than just a show. The series generated over $692 million in total revenue. And that number alone raises a serious question. How does someone not get the full share from something that's successful? That question actually led to a major legal battle in 2018 when Norris filed a lawsuit against CBS, claiming that more than $30 million in profits were still owed. The contract clearly stated that Norris should receive 23% of all profits, but the argument explained that distribution deals were structured in a way that avoided triggering that profit share. Now pause for a moment and think about that. How often do deals look good on paper, but turn complicated behind the scenes? The situation dragged on for years, and in July 2023, the case finally reached a settlement, although the exact amount remained private. That outkey leaves room for curiosity, does it not? Because when numbers like that are involved, silence often says more than public statements. Beyond television and legal battles, another interesting part of the story sits in Dallas, Texas, where Norris co-owned a home with brother Aaron in the Northwood Hills area. This was not just any house. The property was a Mediterranean ranch-style estate with 4 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms, along with features that sounded more like a private resort than a simple home. There was a theater, a weight room, and even a private lake on the grounds. Now here comes a detail that makes everything even more interesting. A separate building on that same property served as a filming studio for Walker, Texas Ranger, and other productions connected to Norris. Just imagine that setup for a second. Living and working in the same space, creating a system where business and personal life blended together in a controlled environment. Does that not sound like a strategic move, rather than just a luxury decision? Then comes Lone Wolf Ranch, another major piece of the bigger picture, located near Navasota, Texas. This property stretched across about 1,000 acres and served not just as a family retreat, but also as a business hub. The ranch became the base for a water bottling company called Sea Force, which focused on artesian well water. Now take a moment to think about that transition. How does a martial artist and actor move into the bottled water business? The answer sits in long-term thinking and diversification. Instead of relying only on entertainment income, Norris expanded into products tied to health and strength, values already connected to the public image built over the years. And that was not all. The same ranch later became the foundation for a dog food business focused on air-dried meals designed to support strength and resilience in dogs. That detail might sound surprising at first, but does it not follow the same pattern of promoting strength and endurance across everything connected to the brand? Real estate and business ventures continued to grow beyond Texas as well. Properties in places like Hawaii added to the overall portfolio, while endorsement deals brought in steady income from major companies. Brands like T-Mobile, World of Warcraft, United Healthcare, and Toyota all became part of the financial journey. Each partnership raised another question. What makes a brand choose a person like Norris again and again? The answer likely comes down to consistency. Strength, discipline, and reliability are qualities that businesses want to connect with. And Norris built a reputation around those exact traits over decades. Writing also played a role in the overall success. Several books added another stream of income while also giving insight into personal philosophy and life lessons. On top of that, a major move came in 2005 with the creation of the World Combat League, which introduced a team-based approach to martial arts competition. That idea alone sparks curiosity, does it not? Martial arts is often seen as an individual discipline, so turning it into a team sport required a completely different kind of thinking. Yet, once again, the pattern stayed the same, taking something familiar and reshaping it into something new, looking at everything together. The acting career, the legal battles, the real estate investments, the ranch businesses, the endorsements, and the writing, a clear pattern starts to form. Nothing came from a single source. Every move added another layer, another stream, another opportunity. That leads to one final thought worth considering. Was the success really about luck? Or was it about steady decisions made over many years? The answer, when it finally begins to take shape, doesn't come wrapped in drama or overnight success stories. Instead, it quietly points towards something far less flashy, yet far more powerful. Discipline, patience, and a kind of long-term planning that most people simply don't have the strength to commit to. It makes you pause for a second, doesn't it? Because in a world obsessed with quick wins and instant results, this journey unfolded in the exact opposite way. Every step, every decision, every setback, it all built toward something much deeper than anyone expected at the beginning. And when you really sit with that idea, you start to realize that maybe the outcome was never the most important part of the story. Maybe it was the process, the resilience, and the quiet determination behind the scenes that truly mattered. That's what makes this story linger with you long after you hear it. But just when you think you understand the full picture, the story takes a more personal, emotional turn, one that brings everything back to the human level. Because beyond the strategy and the journey, there's a final chapter that reveals a different kind of truth, one that hits closer to home than you might expect. Stay with me till the very end, because this next part, his final days and the heartfelt tributes from his family, might just change the way you see everything that came before his final days and family tributes. Quiet but deeply shocking moment unfolded around Kauai when news began to spread about Chuck Norris facing a sudden medical emergency, and the whole situation felt almost unreal when each detail started to come together. Just think about this for a second. How does someone go from being active, energetic, and full of life to a life-changing emergency in less than a day? Reports explained that everything happened on March 19th, 2026, right inside a peaceful property on the island, a place that usually carried calm energy, ocean breeze, and quiet surroundings. Within 24 hours, everything changed. Only a few days earlier, on March 10th, Norris had shared birthday moments that painted a completely different picture. There was sparring, movement, strength, and a message that sounded confident and almost playful, where Norris expressed that aging did not slow anything down, but instead felt like leveling up at 86. That kind of statement made many people pause and smile, because it sounded like someone who still felt strong, still felt sharp, and still felt ready for more. So how does a moment like that turn into something so serious so quickly? That question lingered heavily as more information came out. On March 18th, just one day before everything happened, Norris had been training again on the island and even shared light jokes during a phone call with a close friend. There was no sign, no warning, no visible struggle that anyone could point to. Everything felt normal, everything felt steady, and then, suddenly, everything shifted. By Thursday morning, March 19th, the emergency had taken a devastating turn, and Norris passed away surrounded by family. That detail alone carried weight, because being surrounded by loved ones in final moments often brings both comfort and heartbreak at the same time. As the family began to process the loss, messages started to appear that revealed a much deeper and more personal side of Norris. far beyond the strong and fearless image many people knew. On March 20th, following the official family announcement, emotional tributes came from Norris's 24-year-old twins, Dakota and Dana, and each message felt like a window into a private world filled with love, guidance, and everyday moments that rarely make headlines. Dakota shared black and white photos and expressed that Norris had always been the person looked up to throughout life. That kind of statement might sound simple at first, but when someone thinks about it more deeply, what does it really mean to look up to a father every single day? Dakota spoke about generosity, kindness, courage, and steady love, painting a picture of someone who did not just show strength on the outside, but also gave constant emotional support. There was even a detail that stood out strongly, where Dakota recalled that not a single day passed without hearing the words, "I love you." Now think about that for a moment. How many people can truly say that kind of consistency existed in daily life? That small sentence carried a powerful meaning because it showed a pattern of care that never broke, no matter how busy or complicated life became. Danilee's message added another layer that made everything even more personal. Danilee described Norris as a protector and a safe person for the past 24 years. And that kind of description naturally raised a question. What does it feel like to know that one person in life always stands as safety, no matter what happens? Photos shared ranged from infancy to adulthood, showing growth, time, and a bond that remained steady through every stage. There was also a line that stayed in many minds, where Danilee explained that behind a strong and warrior-like exterior existed a heart full of love. That contrast between strength and softness made everything feel more real, because it reminded everyone that public image often hides deeper emotions that only close family truly sees. It is easy to recognize Norris as a figure of toughness, discipline, and resilience, but messages from family showed something quieter, something more grounded, something filled with warmth and daily affection. The official family statement continued to build on this image and described Norris as a devoted husband, a loving father and grandfather, an incredible brother, and truly the heart of the family. That phrase alone raised another thought. What does it really mean to be the heart of a family? It suggested presence, guidance, support, and a kind of emotional center that keeps everyone connected. Children, including Eric, Mike, and Dina, shared that Norris lived with faith, purpose, and a steady commitment to loved ones, and that idea of purpose seemed to run through every part of life described in these messages. There was no mention of fame, no focus on achievements, no attention on public success, but instead, everything pointed back to relationships, values, and consistency in love. Looking at everything together, the timeline felt almost impossible to process. Just days separated moments of strength, laughter, and activity from a sudden and final goodbye. How does life shift that quickly without warning? How does someone move from training and joking one day to being surrounded by family in final moments the next? These questions did not come with easy answers, but they highlighted how unpredictable life can be, even for someone who seemed almost larger than life. The story that unfolded did not just speak about loss, but also about presence, connection, and the importance of everyday words and actions that often go unnoticed until moments like this bring everything into focus. In the end, what stayed strongest was not the shock of the emergency, but the picture painted by family. A father who said, "I love you," every day. A protector who created safety. A man who balanced strength with deep care. A life lived with purpose and commitment. And maybe the real question that lingered quietly after everything was this: how many people truly leave behind that kind of impact, where love, not legacy, becomes the loudest memory? With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.